Well, guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick off our webinar today. Jim, thanks everybody for taking the time out of your busy Tuesday afternoon to join us here today on March 19th, 2019. Can't believe it's towards the end of March already. Crazy. And big thank you to Jim Rembach, president of Call Center Coach, Jim, for joining us today on being able to share all of the wisdom that he has had over his many years in the space and being able to help everybody here today on how being able to just provide more support for supervisors and make them key leaders as part of your organization. Jim, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and kick off today's webinar. I will play a small part in today and chiming in every slide or two with the odd question. We do have some Q&A as part of our webinar technology in Zoom, so everybody here feel free to ask questions in the Q&A. I'll answer them as I can and make sure that we can get them answered in real time for you. Jim, over to you.
Thanks, Corey. I appreciate the opportunity and for everybody taking out time in their day to be here with us. And my goal is to give you as much value as I possibly can at the time that we're here right now, but then also take it, down the road, right? So, you talked about introducing myself. I mean, for me, I'd rather tell a little bit of a journey. So when I started in contact centers, I was probably like many of you. It found me. I didn't go and search it out. I was working for AutoZone, which is a large auto parts retailer. For those of you who are do-it-yourself car folks, you got to know who AutoZone is, I would think, depending on where you are, of course, in the world. But I had the opportunity to move into the company's real estate department because I double majored in finance and real estate. Now, when I graduated, it was in the middle of a recession. I wanted to be an investment banker, but the cards weren't there for me. So I ended up finding a job with AutoZone. And at that time, for a company like that, where it's do-yourselfers working on automobiles, they were going through a rapid growth. So I moved up through the store ranks, found an opportunity to work in the real estate department, just got married, my wife and I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, away from our family, and boom, I was gone all the time, buying and selling real estate for the company. That got old real fast. Newlywed, new town, no family support, new wife's job, all those things. And so then I said, I can't travel like this. And so I had the opportunity to get a position within their call center. And at the time, they had 11 people, and I was their first supervisor. And we went from 11 people to over 800 people in 2 sites in less than 3 years.
Holy cow.
It was rapid. And so for me, we were in an old Delta Airlines reservation center. And so I was indoctrinated into contact centers and always wanted to, get better at it, right? Well, at the time, this was back in the 1990s. There wasn't a whole lot of research. The internet wasn't around. I couldn't just dial up and go online and try to figure things out. So I found a group called the Call Center Network Group and started connecting with some of those people and tried to improve my skills in contact centers and found my way after AutoZone decided to close their call centers to work with Deluxe Financial Services and some transitions that they were going through in their contact centers. And with their process, they were also going through a consolidation and growth. And what I mean is they were getting rid of these small customer service centers throughout the country and consolidating them into 3 mega centers throughout the country. And I was in one of them in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is where I live now. And so we needed a lot of supervisors really fast. And you just don't go out and hire good supervisors. It's just not the way that it works. And so we had to develop them from within. We were able to find some from the contact centers around us and built the best team that we possibly could, but we had to groom people. We were still on a growth path. And so I was responsible for helping to mentor and develop those frontline folks. Well, as the course of time went, I went through my career and journey, and now I find myself back into helping to develop those frontline leaders. So for me, life's been kind of full circle. But I learned a ton of things along the way. And even so, for now, I've been podcasting on the Fast Leader Show for over 4 years, and I interview people from 3 disciplines. That's leadership, customer experience, and contact centers. And on the Fast Leader Show, I've learned so much. I couldn't write a check big enough for how much that I've learned in the past couple of years. And I get to share all of that with a call center coach through our through our virtual academy to develop those frontline leaders, those emerging leaders, and surprisingly, we also have a lot of senior leaders that are part of the academy. And because it's all about today being able to lead people effectively, we've had decades-long problem of turnover, and we need to fix that. We can no longer continue down the path of churning and burning people. The skill sets that are required in order to do the job are continuing to be raised. And when someone walks out the door with that skill set, in order for us to take somebody who doesn't have those skills to be able to do the job and bring them on board, the learning curve takes forever. Now, procedure flow helps with some of that, right? So that is one way that we can combat it, but we still can't afford to churn and burn people. We need to keep them. So you're actually going to get the opportunity to have some further discussion about this particular topic in our call center coach community and get the ability to get visibility, get the interaction with other people throughout all kinds of different call centers. And I'm also going to give you a free bonus download of several tools that you can use today in order to help improve your call center supervisor performance and those emerging supervisors. Here's my mobile number. You got any questions? Just text me or send me a note and I'll be able to help you. Now, I have, because of my operations background and experience and been in the industry for such a long time, been recognized because I also, as you know, love to chat and share. And please, let's make it an interactive dialogue as much as we can. I don't want it to be all one-sided. So a promise for me, though, for you by the end of this webinar is that you'll know how to assess and develop high-performing supervisors. And I'm going to share with you a lot of statistics that we can take them a couple different ways, to be honest with you. We can take them as, gloom and doom, or we can take them as opportunity. I choose to I actually want to go towards, the bright and the light and run away from the dark. So I'm not going to focus on the dark. I'm going to focus on the opportunity. So as far as that bonus pack that you'll be able to receive in that private Facebook community is, you're going to get information on the impacts of mediocre supervisors and the rest of these items here. I don't need to read them. You can. And bottom line is there's also other tools in there too that you can get that aren't listed here. So it's a big opportunity for you to get some tools. So stay to the end and I'll show you exactly how to get all that. So for me, when you start talking about my career as a supervisor in contact centers, I had, one thing to me that was pretty interesting, at least when I tell other people about it, I get that feedback back, is that I only terminated one person my entire career, going from those 11 people at AutoZone, 800 people multi-site, all of that journey, I only had to terminate one person. And it was for an attendance issue. Because for me, I either coached them up or I coached them out. Up or out. There's only two directions for us to be able to go. And when I say up, that doesn't mean vertical. That doesn't mean you're going to go to the next level of responsibility. A lot of times it's growth within where you are. And that's one of the things that I think people forget a lot about is that growing this way allows you to go this way. So you're always focusing on growth in one direction because it will fuel another direction.
Well, so I think so many people too in the career path sometimes might shy away from doing a lateral move.
That's exactly right. Not everybody wants to be, the next level of responsibility. And the fact is when you start looking in our industry, especially some of these skilled areas, we have some supervisors that have been supervisors for 20 plus years. That's fantastic. But the thing about those supervisors that have that type of tenure is the world's changed in the past few years, and they have to continue to learn in order for them to be successful, and hopefully to take them to their point of retirement and mentor others. So I had the opportunity to supervise high-performing teams. We had high-quality scores, low turnovers, but despite all that, I had a lot of things stacked against me. And you know what? I made a lot of mistakes, even though I had done some things right. So I fell more than I can remember. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, and it was a lot of sink or swim. And that's how most supervisors develop these days, is it's sink or swim. And some of the statistics, when you start talking about performance, we'll get into it in a second. But after doing this for many years, I learned a couple things. That turnover, that you cannot say that it's the nature of the industry. You cannot say that it's the nature of what we do. Because to say that would be lying to yourself. It's not true. We see contact centers all over the place that oftentimes we're in very similar situations that don't experience some of the turnovers that others do. And we'll talk about why that is. Also, when you start talking about what is everybody else doing, because that's what I need to do, that's a dumb practice to follow. Don't do what everyone else is doing. I mean, your organization, your leaders, they're unique to you. And looking at what others do is not always something that you want to replicate. That also, supervisor development, it's not an event. You can't send somebody to a 4-day workshop and then all of a sudden,
Yep.
they now know everything they need to know and they do everything that they need to do. It's just not the way that it works.
I think that spans across departments and industries too, the whole concept of career planning.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. So this isn't, and you bring up a really important point, Corey, is that when you start talking about developing leadership skills, it's something that is a journey no matter where you lead. It doesn't matter. So in the contact center, we need to know that and we need to plan accordingly. So, the fact is that I took a very, very hard road and a very, very long road. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but you can actually shortcut all that. You can take a much easier path, be with what I'm going to be able to share with you today and what you can learn about being different than what our industry has taught us we should be doing. Because obviously it's not great practices when we start looking at systemically as an industry, and I know you may be unique, and hopefully you are. Hopefully you'll get even better at it, but as a whole, there's some things we need to talk about and we need to address. And one is that, here's the facts. I mean, it's been proven. 80% of the reasons why agents leave is because of the relationship they have with their direct supervisor. That's massive.
It's shocking.
It's a massive opportunity, right? We talked about focusing on life. It's a massive opportunity. And so we can capitalize and take advantage of it. So when you start looking at exit interviews and you start talking about, the reasons why people leave, it is because of that supervisor behavior. And we'll talk about some of those behaviors in a second. But it was really the reason why people want to leave. But here's the thing, when you start talking about a lot of exit interviews that you'll see as well, is people will tell you that, oh, well, I found a better opportunity. I found something that paid better or better hours or something along the lines. But here's the thing that when you start talking about exit interviews you need to be aware of is they don't want to get into the conflict. They don't want to tell you the truth. Also, why is it that they even looked and entertained another opportunity to begin with? You don't entertain other opportunities unless something is going on, right? Also, when you start talking about burnout, you don't hire people that are already burned out. You don't hire them that way. How did they become that way? So those are the things that we need to address. So 1 in 3 employees say that their supervisors are ineffective. And so when we say ineffective, that can mean a lot of different things. It could be skill. It could be leading skills and capabilities. But the fact is that's a huge opportunity, right? It's a huge opportunity. So the thing is, only 18% of organizations actually feel that they have an adequate or ample supply to put people in leader roles. And when you start looking at the marketplace that we have today, that is an opportunity.
It sounds like a gym opportunity right there to me.
It definitely is. Here's the bottom line for me. When you start talking about the things that bring me joy and then we all need to find what brings ourselves joy. For me, one thing that brings me joy is helping people to see and find things within themselves that they didn't know existed and help them to reach their goals, help them to be more successful. So yes, from that perspective, I see a lot of joy and opportunity in that, Corey.
Well, I would imagine too, when I think about the way you even explained it, was that, hey, you know what, I didn't plan to be in this field. I ended up in this field though, right? And I would imagine a lot of people that do that don't maybe approach their role in the call center with any sort of foresight, right? Of making goals for themselves. So even before you even get to the supervisor and leadership layer, even the average employee could probably benefit from a little bit of goal setting.
Most definitely. And as a leader, that's one of the things that you have to do today, is you have to help your people find that. You have to help your people connect with that. That's one of the very and vital elements associated with engagement, is people need to know how they fit, how they're making an impact, how they're bringing value. And so you have to help them through that discovery. They don't get that through the education process. It's not what happens in our schools. And
do you have a process for that too? And do you have a process for some of those goals? Like I've worked with a couple. There was one called Ghost that I used in one team where that sort of goals, objective, strategy, tactics. There was another one that was more of a V2 mom, obviously Mark Benioff, Salesforce, the V2 mom model. Which ones have you seen successful in being able to work with frontline employees?
I think one of the things that's quite easy and a lot of people can understand is using the SMART goal tactic and SMART goal process.
Yep.
Being specific, all of those things. And that's one of the things that we do teach in the Call Center Coach Academy. It's more widely used than some of the other models, and it seems to have a universal fit. I even used it for my middle school boys baseball team. And we actually had a parent-teacher meeting, our parent-coaches meeting, and I asked parents if they knew about SMART goals and setting goals. And maybe half of the parents raised their hands. Well, they're not learning it at home. They're not learning it at school. Guess what? You got to teach them when they get to work. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
So when you start talking about being a leader and talking about that sink or swim from a supervisor's perspective, is that more than 50% of contact center supervisors, new supervisors, fail. That's an opportunity. And so when we look at also the 50% that make it, they are able to dog paddle and then make it to swimming, is that process. Just think about how many agents get taken out in that process. And one of the things that I want to prevent is when somebody decides to move away or walk away from their call center job, that they don't say this: I'm never going to work in one of those again. To me, that's something I want to prevent universally. And we can do that. We have the opportunity. So if more than 50% of them fail, we have an opportunity. We also have an opportunity to save those people that we need to save from leaving the contact center industry and contact center jobs and never coming back. We don't want that to happen. So you could say we're in crisis, and we're in it. It's continuing to grow. But again, let's flip it. We talk about opportunity and what we need to do, and know that we have a tough road. Technology has made a lot of the tasks that we have more efficient, more effective, become easier, but it's also made it significantly more difficult to lead. It has become significantly more complex, and it's going to continue to grow. This is not changing. You have a situation where customers have all these self-help options. You have all of these diverse workforces. You have all of this. I'm not learning goals at school. I'm not learning it. All these different factors that if we're not developing ourselves as leaders and not helping to develop our frontline leaders, how in the heck are they going to develop others?
That's a great point, Jim. That's something that we hear from our customers. Geez, every day, they'll say, "Hey, listen, we've made a lot of technology advancements. Our IVR is now where it needs to be. We've been using maybe some machine learning in our chat bot. We've created a self-help portal for customers. So now what we see is that the customer has more options than ever to self-help, whether it be through chat, IVR, or even a self-help portal." Which means, guess what the agent gets? The really stinking hard, complex stuff. So we've put all the pieces in the puzzle in place to self-help the customer, and this is putting the pieces of the puzzle in place to help the supervisors and help your frontline agents and give them the support that they need beyond the technology that helps them do their job.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really important point, Corey, is that you have the frontline folks. Think about this. You have the frontline folks that are having to deal with all of that difficult stuff, and they're giving it to their supervisors, right? So they're giving it to all those supervisors, and then the supervisors are actually trying to transfer and translate and send all that information up so that they can actually systemically fix some of these issues, up to higher levels of the organization and outside the contact center, and they don't want to have any part of it, and and supervisors are just crunched in the middle.
Well, you end up with a KPI versus real life scenario. Hey, we need to hit these KPIs, but the real life scenario is that customers can self-help, which means our agents are getting the really gnarly, hairy problems. We talked to one consultant in Australia just before the holidays who said, they've done so many great projects in the last 2 years. They watched Definitely their call volume has reduced because of the advancements that they've made, but they've watched their average call time go from 8 minutes to over 20 minutes. Because once again, the agent is left with the really, really hard stuff. And that's really putting, I imagine, a lot of those supervisors, like you said, in that vice.
That's right. So the way for supervisors to be able to survive, otherwise they're going to get burned out and they're going to leave too, right?
Yep.
They need to improve their leadership skills. They need to learn how to develop and coach and lead down, develop and coach and lead up, develop and coach and lead sideways. And so if we don't invest in their skills, I mean, it's just perpetuating the problem.
Well, Jim, I think you just sold me.
So really, when we look at this, the reasons that frontline leaders fail are these reasons right here. And for those that just may be listening, I'll go ahead and share these real quick if you're not watching. Because that is the top 12. And this is a study that was done by Development Interventions International. What they do is study and provide solutions for general frontline leadership. What I do it is through the contact center lens. So the top 12 reasons are lack of interpersonal skills, lack of strategic skills, conflict avoidance, lack of trust building, lack of training, lack of mentorship, poor decision making, inability to execute objectives, managing former colleagues, arrogance, and lack of innovation. And so what we have done is addressed every single one of these things in the Call Center Coach Academy so that we can hopefully change this performance and flip it around so that these contact center supervisors can do a better job of being successful in creating future leaders, right? So when you start looking at, in the contact center industry, a poll of 1,000 job seekers in the contact center industry showed many of the reasons, why they left the contact center. And again, for those that are just listening, you have 11% of folks felt that they were undertrained, 18% feeling bored or unchallenged, 20% their hard work was going unrecognized. They weren't being recognized. 24% felt they were being unfairly paid, and 27% felt that there was a lack of promotional opportunities, talking about that whole growth and career pathing component. Now, when you start looking at all of these reasons, the fact is that the vast majority of them can be impacted by the supervisor. The supervisor can influence a lot of the feelings about these things. The supervisor can impact a lot of the things associated with the career path, the fit. Now, they also may be able to have some effect on the pay to some degree as well if they can lead better and actually show how that value and worth and that pay and all of that is needed. If they become better leaders, those things could be affected. So really, when you start looking at the performance of folks, is that only 23% of employees said that they feel like they're performing to their full potential. And that the vast majority of them said that they would increase their effectiveness significantly if they just wanted to. And that most of them are just cruising.
Yeah.
Not any extra effort. And that's almost half of the folks. So what employees give and what they put out is directly influenced by the supervisor. And I mean put out as far as a performance and effort is concerned, right? So when you start talking about motivation, job fit, empowerment, training, career pathing, recognition, and rewards, those are the reasons why people stay. So the supervisor can really impact a lot of that to a very significant degree. So when you start talking about career pathing from a supervisor perspective, you have to ask yourself, well, are you promoting the right people into those positions? Because our industry standard has been, hey, you're a great agent, you'll be a great supervisor. So next week, you're going to be managing these 10 people. Just show them what you know, and everything will be great. That's not what happens.
We've seen that fallacy across many departments, I bet, too. I know I've seen that in many industries.
It's a totally different skill set that's required, totally different set of competencies that are required in order to be able to develop people into leading frontline contributors versus being a frontline contributor. It's not the same. So what we need to be able to do is equip those people who are existing and emerging with the needed skills and knowledge to be successful in the role. We have to develop them, because you can't necessarily go out and hire for them. You have to build it, because even if you go out and hire, what you're going to find is that there's going to be leaders who are still going to be in need to develop these skills. And here's one of the things about leading of people. And we often talk about doctors in their career, in their profession, and lawyers. What are they doing? They're practicing law. They're practicing medicine. When you lead people, you have to practice leadership. That's when we meet. That's what I was meaning before when I said teaching people how to lead is not an event, not sending them to a workshop and, now they're all good to go. It's a journey, and they have to continue practicing in it. The learning can never stop. I mean, I jokingly say when my learning stops, when it stops, it will be the day I take my last breath.
Yep. I think that's the one thing that I try to talk to younger folks in their careers is understand the value of a good mentor, right? Being able to continually learn from people that can help on your path, I think is an opportunity that few recognize early on in their careers.
That is very true. I mean, it took me, a long time to have that finally click in my head. So when you start talking,
you and I both.
Yeah. So when you start talking about finding the right people, right? Finding the right candidates, there's a lot of ways that you can go about doing that. So one of the core things is selecting correctly. So yes, interviews, situational roles, problem solving, psychometric tests are very, very powerful, as well as other feedback instruments. I mean, I'm certified as an emotional intelligence practitioner, and I love using emotional intelligence in order to be able to assess and interview and understand the emotional intelligence skills of the people who I want to be in leading roles, and quite frankly, even frontline roles.
And I would imagine even those kinds of tests would help in team building in general, just making sure you put the right people together on the right project, the right program, the right shift even.
That absolutely can be an effective tool to use. I also started working with one particular tool, if anybody wants to learn about it, which is called Team Quotient. And it gets into, if you think about this, is that if I have several supervisors, if those supervisors don't work well amongst each other, they're dysfunctional. Do you honestly think they're going to build a functional team? No, they're going to have dysfunction in the team too. So if they're dysfunctional this way, they're going to be dysfunctional that way too. And then they're going to be dysfunctional that way. I mean, dysfunction is contagious. So Team Quotient tools actually help you build a much stronger team, because if I have colleagues that I am working well with, I end up working better with my team as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can assess finding that right person. And again, I'm not saying from hiring from the outside and assessing and doing all that. So I'm hiring a supervisor from outside. I'm also talking about developing those people who we have that have the potential. So I talked about working at Deluxe Financial Services and building that mentor program. So we called it a team leader and training program. And they went through a progression path to where they ultimately built their way up to having their own team to manage. And that was a 12 to 18 month cycle, because we realized there's no way you could rush it. Now, some people were ready for their team in a little bit less than a year, but it took that long in order to help people build the competencies they needed to be successful. And what was at risk? The fact is they could be wiping out 10 agents in the process, and we couldn't afford that, right? As well as the innocent victim in poor leadership. You may say to yourself, who is that? Or I ask the question, who is the innocent victim in us having weak leadership in our contact centers? It's not the agent, it's the customer.
Yeah.
The customer feels the brunt of it the most. Okay, so when we start talking about the attributes of top supervisors, I covered these up because I just want you to focus in on two, because as you can see, there's a big list, and you can get those in the bonus pack. You can get the full list of the top attributes of supervisors. And I wanted to focus in on these top two, because if these two don't exist, they're not a right candidate in any way, shape, or form. And you know what? That's okay. Because some people, they don't find joy like I do in seeing and helping others to succeed. And if you don't feel that way, you're not a bad person. You just can't lead people. That's just the way that it goes. And then the other thing is that you have to be open to learning. I mean, in the contact center industry, I've been in it for 20 plus years. And I used to be able to say 10 years ago, oh, 10 years ago, things were different. And then I used to be able to say, well, 5 years ago, things are different. Now, for me, it's like 3 years ago, things are different. I mean, that window just keeps closing and closing because of all the things that are happening both in the marketplace, from a technology perspective, global perspective, I mean, generations in the workforce, I mean, all of these things that are happening. So the world's changes rather rapidly. So you must be open to learning. It used to be that people would say, well, I've been doing this for 20 years, and that was seen as some type of,
badge of honor.
Yeah, badge of honor. But the fact is that if you haven't been learning that whole time, that means that you were doing what you were doing 20 years ago, right? That ain't good. That's not good. So I happen to be in a conversation. My wife is a tax accountant, and some of her colleagues were talking, and they were talking about one of their clients that was using a spreadsheet that was 30 years old. And for me, I'm starting to think about, well, what about the rest of the company?
Yeah.
To me, I think that is signing the decree of extinction. You're doing what you were doing 5 years ago in the contact center. You're signing the decree of extinction. Don't do that. Don't be that person.
Well, and the one thing that we're seeing is because of technology, we're seeing those windows of innovation tighten up, right? It used to be a window of 5-year planning, 10-year planning. And now you need to find ways of being able to put innovation at the core of all you do, because the fact of the matter, your competitor is. Have even again, somebody had asked.
I'll give my contact information and I'll provide motion, because I actually interviewed the guy who's the author of the system, and I have not released his episode yet, so I'll make sure you get in the loop on that, because he was fantastic.
Oh, good. Yes, was it Doug?
Doug.
Perfect.
Doug. Who you saying who asked the question, or?
No, it looks, I did some searching online. I couldn't find a link right away to the technology, but I saw a book by it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll share it with the audience while you continue.
Here, I'll share it real quick. This is the book. Team Quotient. It's Douglas Gerber. Yeah, he goes by Douglas.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, and I have other things of his that when we had the interview that I can share as well. So please reach out to me, and I can give you the quick list. Otherwise, it's a lot to read. Oh, okay. So when you start talking about developing, and I talked about competencies, talked about the foundational skills to be able to, grow this way and grow up, is that these 6 things we found are needed to be developed in our frontline leaders. And the thing is, even when we start talking about mid-level leaders, senior leaders, they continue to build upon these 6 core competencies. So when you start thinking about these and thinking about your own development, I dare to say that you'll probably say, oh, I can see where my development, or my people's development fit, within these particular segments. So staff development results, I mean, all of these particular competencies are required in order for us to be high performing as a supervisor. Otherwise, you go back on that list of mediocre supervisors and supervisors that fail. Ones that are weak in these areas are going to struggle, and some significantly. When you even think about your own organization, you may say, oh, we're heavier in this area than others. So, hey, we're very, very numbers driven. We use numbers for every decision that we make. Well, if you don't have high skills and business acumen, you're set up for failure. Not going to be a good fit.
Very true.
So you have to kind of know your DNA and know your people and know where they need to develop these skills and the effects and impacts. And also you may say, hey, we're pretty siloed here as an organization. So you know what? Maybe I need somebody who can really be strong in collaborative relationships and teach everybody else how to do it. So there's a whole lot of opportunity when you start looking at these 6 core competencies. And what we do is we evaluate against those and certify against those, or to those, I should say. So talking about staff development, these are some of the things that people need to be able to do from a staff development perspective. And define core competencies of team members all the way through to helping to develop development plans for their individual team members. In order for you to connect and retain and help these people to not want to leave because I didn't see career opportunities, because I didn't feel like they saw value in me, all of those things, you have to be better at developing staff. When I talk about getting results, I need to be able to tie those overall company strategic objectives all the way down to my frontline KPIs, my frontline individual agent performance. Agents need to know and see how they fit in the overall scheme and strategy of the overall organization. We need them to be able to put together problem-solving techniques and apply them to some of the problems that may be existing from a customer experience perspective and a contact center performance perspective, and need to be able to quantify the financial implications of all of this. So if we have an impact in a staffing model and don't meet service level expectations, what does that mean? Right? What is the impact? How do I get results? How do I instill in people that they have an opportunity to influence the impact of the customer experience, of their colleagues' experience? How does all that work? Does all those go into results?
I think that's one thing that that's becoming front and center really in the last 2 or 3 years is, obviously customer experience has been a buzzword for a while. People always want to focus on the customer experience, but really it's about enabling the employees to deliver on that promise the brand makes to its customers. And I think that's where there's a downfall is the easiest way to affect customer experience, focus on the employee experience.
That's true. And so when you also talk about the Pareto principle of 80-20, you look at also the issues that exist systemically within a customer interaction operation or customer service operation or even inbound sales operation, support operation, and this goes on and on, is that 80% of the issues that you deal with are really company-generated issues, whether it's product fulfillment, and it goes on. And about 10%, and then you have the remaining 20%, and it's split. 10% are customer-generated problems. The customer is dysfunctional. Because goodness knows we have those, right? And then the other thing is, the other 10% is really left to agents and what they can control. So they need to be able to understand how to get results beyond just them. Not just about me. They're not on an island. So then the other thing is looking at those customer service and sales activities, like being able to look at sales through a service lens. Because the fact is that if we do deliver on the service side, what does it do? It generates more sales, generates higher retention rates. All of those things happen. So how do you actually position that? And then how do you look at service-based selling approaches and apply them down at the front line? Mm-hmm. Then communication and change management. Change management, we're all dealing in the world of change every single day. If you're not addressing things associated with change, it's happening to you instead of you being proactively involved with it, because it's going to happen. So like I talked about signing that the decree of extinction, that's a change, the tactic. I didn't do anything, so guess what? Now I'm no longer needed. So when you start looking at all of that process of communicating and change, leading is critically important in that. Everybody talks about the word buy-in, but when do you actually want to do buy-in versus expectation setting and directing? How does all that fit? And so you need to be able to improve your skills to be able to deliver on the type of change management and communication action when it's necessary and needed. And I already kind of hit on this whole collaborative relationship piece, is that one of the reasons that we have silos and dysfunctional connections within an organization is because of poor collaborative relationship skills. So why does marketing drop a bomb on you and you don't find out about it until the phones light up and all these chat messages come in and all this, that, and the other? Why does that happen? It's because of collaborative relationships being poor or having an opportunity, right? We talked about opportunities. You got an opportunity there. So everybody needs to be able to improve their skills associated with collaborative relationships. And then when you start talking about key performance indicators and business acumen, there is a significant opportunity for people to be able to understand why KPs are what they are, which ones affect another, and how you can proactively manage those. I used to jokingly say, what is your KPI goal? Because I'll help you. I will not only meet your KPI need and requirement and goal, I'll exceed it every time. Now, don't ask me how I got there, but I can make it happen. So you can easily manipulate your way to getting KPIs, but that's not the tactic we want to teach people to take, right? We want to help them understand how the KPIs fit, where they are, and why they are set the way they are. I also teach people a lot about KPI setting, because think about this in a contact center. What happens to your customer interaction volumes? They do this.
Yeah.
And so if you have a KPI goal, why would it be one number? How many times are you going to hit that? And you're going to hit it very seldom. You need to have a range of performance. And most KPIs need to be ranges of performance in a contact center because of the volume issue. Yet that's not what you see. Why is that? So you're setting yourself up for KPI failure, right? There's an opportunity there that exists. So,
and I would imagine too in the space, probably having a deep understanding of how these KPIs relate to the rest of the organization is probably a bit of a hole. So, as a supervisor, being able to relay that down to your frontline agents so that they feel empowered that, these KPIs that we're all told to hit, they're actually very important to the organization, and they should feel more empowered in their roles if it's done correctly.
Yeah, and I think from a KPI perspective, what I've seen is that it's most effective when it's a two-way communication. I mean, and think about the supervisor in the middle. When they're able to communicate, to the upper level about, things associated with that KPI goal setting and how it affects certain things, and oftentimes they don't do that very well. It's like, okay, for example, I can hit this number, but if I hit this number, it's affect that number because of this. Is that what you want me to do? Because executives make decisions. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to make decisions. However, as somebody who is involved with having to meet that KPI, you need to be able to position it in a way by which you're giving them a choice. Do you want me to affect the customer experience and increase our FCR rate? Is that the choice? So if I get you this number and hit that goal, this is what could be the effect because of these things. Which would you prefer?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have the skills to be able to have that type of communication.
Well, I think that's an important point too. Managing up is one of those things you usually don't learn right away.
No.
You're usually really good at managing down to people as a new leader, new supervisor. But yeah, learning how to manage up and be able to let leadership understand that the decisions they make can be seen in a couple different lights.
Yeah, because the reality of our lives in the contact center is the people who often make decisions at that very upper level have no clue what a call center is all about.
Yeah, and what it takes to actually achieve those numbers and metrics, right?
Right. So now there's two ways you can approach that. You can say, what a bunch of idiots, or I can show them some grace and I can try to give them the information they need to make a decision.
That's right.
All right. So they must be able to perform in all 6 of these areas. It's critically important for their success and for the organization's success, and for us having leaders that we need to groom and we need to develop, and ones that we already have in place. We need to look at continuing to develop skills in these areas for them. It cannot be that one-time event, send them to a workshop. Does not happen. Does not happen. It's what you do every single day all along the way, which gets you to the path of success. So how do folks measure up? When you start talking about these supervisors, there's a lot of ways that you can go about testing those. Look, of course, at their on-job results. You can do 360 reviews if your organization does that. You can do competency testing. You can do knowledge and skill testing. There's a lot of ways that you can assess folks. So one of the things that we do in order to be able to help with that overall performance development piece is look at that leadership development as a journey. And if you look at folks that have been most successful in developing leadership skills in other industries, and so we're bringing this to the contact center, is that they approach it in a blended learning environment that's more on demand and meets the needs of their job. So it's right time, path, a skill path development, and a journey process. And so we often look, and I think you even said it a moment ago, Corey, talking about the innovative and creative thinking type of environment and development of skill is that we can only pull out of ourselves what has been put in. So think about that from an idea perspective. I can only pull out what has been put in. So if I only get exposed to my four walls of operation, is there really any way that I'm going to help innovate that operation? No, because that's all I know. Nothing else has been put in. As adults, we learn best when we're in a community of practice. To some degree, we're kind of in a little community with this webinar. Otherwise, I need more interaction from you, right? I need to learn from you. I want some more of that. So please ping in on the chat window. But that's how we learn the best as adults. So you have to give them a community of practice in order to be able to learn and get those other viewpoints. Then they also need information when they need it. So micro-learning, quick learning, quick tips, even faster than that. Hey, I just need quick access and want to get some insights. Being able to ask questions, and so a Q&A webinar is something we do every single week. And then we also have virtual boot camps. This isn't a workshop. This is a boot camp by which you do something different, something new every day for 14 days. Watch a short video, go do it, and come back, because we also talked about behavior of the supervisor. So if my behavior doesn't change, how am I going to impact that employee experience and then subsequently that customer experience? So I have to try new things, not just know about new things. I have to try new things. And then learning about the industry. You're doing some of that industry learning right now, but that has to be continual and continuous. And then giving a path to build skills within those specific core competency areas, and then also evaluate against those. So all of these are part of the platform and the academy that we have at Call Center Coach, all those different types of learning. And then the key is that you have to make it a path. So if you don't, you need to create that type of learning journey for your folks. And you need to continue the path. This road never ends. This road ends when? When they take their last breath. You have to continue to learn. So it's got to be something that's also a clear pathway. It can't be, hey, we're going to be a better leader. Well, what the heck does that mean? That's not specific. It can't be, it's not measurable. I can't put any time-bound parameters around it. So what does that mean? Kind of talking about that team leader and training program and path is that it was 12 to 18 months before they can get to running and managing a team. However, their learning never stopped. They were still breathing. They had to learn. So you can go to this Facebook group. If you go to Facebook and go to groups and just put in Call Center Coach, if you request to get in, I'll let you in, and you can get the bonus pack, which has a supervisor audit. It has information about the results of mediocre frontline leaders. It has that full list of attributes for successful leaders. And so you can actually go through and take the evaluation. And there's also an infographic and a couple other things that are in there as well.
Jim, I just shared that in the group chat as well, with the link to the Facebook group itself, so that everybody has it now. And awesome. For the attendees, we'll also make sure we send it out as part of the follow-up from all those that registered today.
Most definitely. So Corey, I mean, if you have questions, have any people submit questions, I'll be more than happy to field anything. Yes,
feel free, all attendees, to send any questions our way. We did a pretty good job, Jim, of being able to answer questions as they went along. One point that I always like to make when I think about leadership, you mentioned it earlier about emotional intelligence, EQ, that you had talked about. One of the people that I'm a good fan of in the space, Rachel Mills. She was a customer of ours. Did a webinar with her not that long ago. One of the quotes that she said that really stuck with me, and I know it's one of those ones that sticks with you as well, is, if you care, they will. Right, and I think in this day and age, just simply showing somebody that you care can go a heck of a lot way in empowering them to care about their job function.
Yeah, and take it to the next level. Say it, and then show it. Because here's one of the things you talked about. I talked about that alignment and that congruency. It's like, I know my core, and I continue to build with that, is that, if I tell you I care and then I show you that I care, that's significantly more powerful than just showing or just saying. And actually just saying and not showing is really a bad thing.
Yeah.
They'll take you back several steps. But it's the showing and the telling, so that's reinforced.
That's right. And sharing in the small wins, right? Even if it is a small win. Hey, every win is a win, right?
Most definitely.
And here's a good question too, Jim, before we end our time together here on a Tuesday afternoon. What strategies can operations managers use to model ownership for their supervisors? Going back to what you said about supervisor skill, how can companies help supervisors achieve it?
One of the things when you start talking about leading, and I look at all these gurus, all these people that I've interviewed on the Fast Leader Show, and basically it all starts with me. Meaning that when I show ownership and I model ownership, and therefore I also convey that I expect ownership, that's when you start closing the gap. And then you also have people, they'll start coming to you and saying, I'm struggling to be able to own that. How do I do that? And you also have some that'll just never do it, but that's just the reality. But I have seen situations where people, have seen that others are owning it. They're trying to own it. They're struggling, and then they ask for assistance. So that's the first start, is that it's got to be you. Now, here's the issue, is that you work, let me just say me. I've worked for some organizations where I've owned it, but the company has not. And so then part of it is that I have to make a decision as whether or not I want to be part of the company. However, as a frontline supervisor, I still have a responsibility back to that organization, even though they may not be showing that they're taking ownership. I need to say as a leader, that's okay, but I will. And therefore you live it.
Perfect. And William has a great question here too. Where he is, they're trying to promote employee engagement by helping reps feel like owners. Any tips to that path as the supervisor needs to get that message out?
It does come back down to that whole action piece. I've had people say that, why would you talk about this, trying to get people to act and feel like owners, because they're not. The reality is they're not an owner. Okay, well then what do they own? What can they own? Goes back to the business acumen understanding, goes back to how is it that what they're doing affects the whole? How are they part of a larger community? You have to look at it from what are they hearing? What are they saying? What are they seeing? What are they feeling? All of those particular aspects of emotional intelligence that are required in order for them to take a sense of responsibility. So, and also talk about the responsibility and talk about the expectation of ownership. So it all starts with their world and what they can control.
Great. Well, Jim, I can't thank you enough for your time today. How do people get a hold of you easiest? I know you had one of your intro slides. You might maybe end on that so that those of our attendees who are still with us can make sure that they connect with you anywhere that they possibly can. But definitely want to leave last words to you, Jim. Greatly appreciate your time. Any last words for our attendees today before we wrap up our time on a Tuesday?
It all starts with you and your actions. And that's really the bottom line. It's not what you say, it's what you do. Your actions speak louder than any words that you'll ever lay out of your mouth. It's a journey for everybody. It's a journey for your people. So whether or not you're responsible for others and the development of others, it still starts with your own development. Continue to invest in you. Do these things. Take actions. Actions is where it's all about. One of the biggest failures in organizations today is execution. It's getting things done. That's the bottom line. If you can get things done, you'll skyrocket in your performance and your opportunities.
Well, definitely something that all of us can learn from. We are definitely going to make this webinar available to review online at a later time. Everybody who has registered today is going to get a follow-up. We're going to do a wrap-up blog post to make sure we captured all of Jim's amazing brain on paper, as well as recording of today's webinar that we will provide to all registrants. So please look for that in your inbox in the next coming days. Jim, can't thank you enough for your time. As always, every time we talk, it's a sheer pleasure. I thank you again, sir. And everybody who's joined us today, thank you. I greatly appreciate everyone's time. Everybody have a lovely week and a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thanks again, everybody.